Hi, my name is Enna, and I study English literature. This is my story, and I want to share it with you to tell you about my life in California and my wonderful instructor. You may read it and learn English with me. It's a lovely summer day. I am traveling by train with two women who are seated across from me. They are speaking English, but I don't understand them very well because I am just learning the language. I started talking to the women and said a few basic sentences in English. I was happy that the women understood what I wanted to say when I said, I want to learn English. After we spoke for 20 minutes, they told me they were from Chicago and were leaving for a conference. When we said goodbye, they gave me their address and phone number and said I could visit them there. After this meeting, I worked on my English every day for 25 to 30 minutes, translated texts, and watched movies in English for 5 months. After that, I felt like my English was better, but I still wanted to learn more. I visited California. I went to school in California because I wanted to study English, and on Monday, I met my teacher and the other students. Our teacher was a young, fine lady who was very kind and humble. We introduced ourselves, and then we started the lesson. Our teacher had a question for us. She wanted to know what general knowledge we had of the language. She also told us that she could teach us English using a very effective method. This strategy was very easy to understand. Our teacher told us that we would not need to study or read textbooks, but we would still need to use English frequently in our daily lives. It worked really well for me, as I did not enjoy studying from textbooks because they were confusing. Next, we talked about what matters most when learning a new language. Our teacher explained that languages offer as a form of communication and that we need them to express our ideas and thoughts. Therefore, the best way to learn a new language is to use it for both speaking with others and expressing our feelings. And that is exactly what we will be doing in our course. We will be speaking and using the English language a lot. Many students try to memorize new words and grammar rules, but they also study the language instead of using it for speaking. There is a difference. Of course, you need to learn new words and grammar, but you should practice them every day in this course. I wanted to show you a very effortless and efficient strategy. About how to gain grammar and vocabulary, I agree with our instructor that our lesson is going well. We talked in couples or with our teacher about our interests and hobbies during our free time. I truly loved attending lessons, and I'm glad that this particular learning method worked well for me. Section 2. How I gained vocabulary. When I returned to school on Tuesday, one of the kids raised a question that caught my attention. What is the best way to learn new words? Our instructor replied that there are a variety of ways to expand your vocabulary. The most efficient way to learn new words based on research is to read. People who read gain new words in their language twice as quickly as those who do not. It is recommended that you read for at least 25 to 30 minutes each day. Now, let me show you what to do to get the most out of reading. First and foremost, it is essential that the text or book you are reading is engaging for you. You should also enjoy reading the book. It is effective to choose a text that is both engaging and suitable for your level. When you read a book and come across a word that you don't understand, you should look up the definition in a dictionary. This will improve both your understanding of the text and your vocabulary. The book can be a nice story, it can be not real, or it can be real life, depending on your interest in it. As the text grows, you won't need to write the word down because it will automatically become locked in your brain, and you will always remember its meaning wherever you see it again. Reading also has another awesome benefit. As you read, you learn new words, and you also learn how each word is connected to other words in the sentence. You can see how to link the words correctly. This method of learning new words is very effective. Give it a try, and you'll be surprised at how quickly you can pick up new vocabulary. After that, we resume the lecture by talking about the current situation of Chicago and the greatest employment available to students. I asked other students where they knew I could get work, and they advised me to go to a job center since they have a lot of positions available, especially for students. This is wonderful for me because I want to obtain a job and do something with my free time after school. Knowing where to look for a career when school is finished makes me pleased. I visited the employment center. I asked the woman at the employment center what the greatest job for a student would be because I had no idea what I could do. She told me that they had some nice positions for students, such as becoming a cafe server or a cleaner. I informed the woman that I had no prior experience in these types of occupations, but she assured me that my English was sufficient to work at the cafe, that the training was easy, and that I would have more opportunities to speak English than if I were a cleaner. She also said that I could begin working there on Monday. For me, everything is fine. I'm thankful that I work in an environment where I can practice my English. If you want to learn new words, you should read for 30 minutes every day. On Wednesday, I returned to school. Our teacher asked us if we had any questions for her, and the student from Japan, who is quieter than the rest of the class, said that he had a question. He said that he knew his pronunciation was poor, but he didn't know how to get better at it. His poor pronunciation is the reason he doesn't speak much. He explained that he understands English very well and watches a lot of films in the language, but he still wants to improve his speaking. When my teacher heard this, she said, "Okay, I will tell you something about pronunciation and how to practice it. I will also teach you techniques which can help all of you become better at pronunciation. First, we have to look at why do students struggle with pronunciation? When we speak, we must move our mouths and use our mouth muscles. This is an everyday problem when learning a language like English. However, when you speak English, sometimes you use your mouth muscles just as you would in your native tongue, which causes your pronunciation to differ from that of native speakers. This is why many students struggle with pronunciation, and nearly everyone has a slightly different pronunciation than they should. The good news is that this is not a major issue, because most people can understand what you say. What that you would like to say. Even if you don't have perfect pronunciation, you can still improve it a lot with this great technique called shadowing. To practice shadowing, simply copy the sounds you hear. Children learn their first language by repeatedly copying what their parents say, and at some point, they gain perfect pronunciation. If you can learn English pronunciation in the same way, you can also get better your pronunciation. After our teacher went to www.youtube.com and searched for videos that showed the shadowing technique, she found some that were very good. We watched the video, and then we all tried to shadow for about 3 minutes. Our teacher then told us that shadowing is also beneficial when you are preparing for an English presentation. Shadowing is a kind of recording that is not very fast and that you can understand very well. And before the presentation, you should have proper pronunciation. You may shadow someone for 15 minutes in an empty room, and you'll be surprised at how much it improves your pronunciation when giving a presentation. I found this to be extremely interesting. After the lecture, I went to the school reception and asked the woman if there were any sports activities available. I said, I would like to do some sport in Chicago, as I had never heard of such a strategy before. In fact, we have 2 teams, one for table tennis and the other for football. The football team practices today at 6 a.m., and when I went to see them, I was thrilled to see so many players from all over the world. They were from Spain, Brazil, Russia, Japan, Argentina, and Italy, among others. Sport is very important to me. I had an awesome time throughout the training, and I felt grateful that my stay in Chicago had started very well. I also have some new friends from my football team, and tomorrow I start my work. When you want to practice pronunciation correctly, try repeating words after native speakers. On Thursday, I went back to school. There was a new student in our class named Veronica, who is from Italy. At the beginning of the lesson, my teacher asked Veronica some questions. My teacher knows Veronica because she visited her class a year ago, but it was a beginner's class that lasted for just 2 weeks during the summer break. When Veronica spoke, she did so fluently and beautifully, and my teacher was impressed to hear that she was attending a very good school in Italy. As Veronica explains it, I study English at home instead of attending school. I use strategies that I picked up from you. I read a lot, think aloud, and try to think in English more than in Italian. These are the ways that I work on my English. The 2 weeks that I spent in your class last summer really helped. You showed me how to work on my English every day. Because I was a beginner a year ago and can now speak English, I wanted to retake your class. Once more, I was happy to hear that my teacher had appreciated Veronica's hard work. I already knew about reading and the shadowing technique, but Veronica also talked about thinking aloud, which I didn't know what it was. I asked our teacher what thinking aloud was, and she said that it's a very effective technique, but you have to be really motivated to learn English in order to benefit from it. It's also important to know that some people find this technique a little strange, but once you start thinking aloud, your English can improve quickly. I explained that I am highly motivated. I don't care if the technique is strange as long as it works. I want to learn it. Could you please teach us how to do this? It's actually very simple. You think in your original tongue all day long as it is normal. Once you start thinking in English, you can think aloud by just saying what you think. That's all I have to say. Why is it so effective? Our teacher suggests that you ask Veronica. She applies this strategy when our teacher asked Veronica if it was okay for her to talk about her experience with thinking aloud. She replied, "It's not a problem for me." When I started with this technique, it wasn't easy. I started with very simple sentences. For example, I can speak English. It's good that I can speak English. I want to be better. I need to practice every day. I don't know many words, but I can use these words. I can express my ideas with these words. I'm really good at this. The sentences were very simple, but there was an issue at first because my Italian thought process was so difficult that I couldn't think of how to say it in English. The hardest part was finding a simpler way to think in English, but at some point it became normal for me to think in English. Then, an interesting thing happened. I met a man from Canada who was visiting Italy on vacation. I was still a beginner, but we were able to communicate in English. I could tell that we could communicate without any issues. After meeting with the man from Canada, I started to think aloud more. This technique really helped me a lot with my speaking, and I still use it every day. Although my sentences were short and simple, I was still able to speak. I didn't translate from Italian to English in my head. When our teacher appreciated Veronica for her experience with thinking aloud, I knew I wanted to adopt this method to improve my speaking as well as my ability to speak English effectively. Think out loud. In addition, you may read, listen, think, and talk in English by doing each of these things for 25 to 30 minutes each day.